In 2025, at 78 years old, Dolly Parton published a memoir called Star of the Show, My Life on Stage, and buried inside it was a sentence she had been carefully not saying for 50 years. Porter Wagoner had been giving her necklaces, rings, and a Cadillac in front of the cameras while refusing to raise her salary behind them. And every time she asked for more money, he would point at whatever gift he had just bought her and say, "Consider that your raise." For 7 years, from 1967 to 1974, Dolly Parton was the most popular thing on the most popular country music television show in America. And she earned the same paycheck the entire time. That is what she finally said out loud. And it is only the beginning of what she has been holding back about Porter Wagoner since the day she left. The version of this story that country music has always told is a simple one. Porter Wagoner was the established star who saw something in a 21-year-old girl from the Tennessee mountains and gave her a chance. She joined his syndicated TV show in 1967, sang duets that went to #1, stayed for 7 years, then left to become even bigger than him, a mentor and a protege. Complicated goodbye. The end. That version is not wrong. It is just missing most of what actually happened. What the audience watching at home in 1967 did not know was that Dolly had replaced a popular singer named Norma Jean, and the live audience at tapings spent the first several weeks of her tenure chanting Norma Jean's name every time Dolly walked out. She won those audiences over one performance at a time, with nothing but her voice, and her refusal to be intimidated by a crowd that hadn't chosen her yet. What they also didn't know was the deal Wagoner offered her. $60,000 a year, which was, as Dolly later wrote, like $1 million to someone who grew up where she grew up. And what nobody knew, what Dolly only put into print in 2025, was that as the show grew, as their duets climbed the charts, as her name became as recognizable as his, that $60,000 figure never moved. The Wagon Masters got bonus checks. Porter showered her with Cadillacs and jewelry and necklaces that generated press coverage, and when she asked for a raise, he pointed at the gifts. She kept asking. He kept pointing. In 1970, Dolly Parton and Porter Wagoner appeared together on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. It was a major platform national television, millions of viewers, exactly the kind of exposure a rising star builds a career from. C. Porter Wagoner answered every single question. Johnny Carson directed questions to both of them. The band played, the cameras rolled, and every time the conversation turned toward Dolly, Wagoner fielded it. She sat beside him and smiled. Nashville agent Dolores Smiley, who was there and later described it in the book Dolly by Alana Nash, said Wagoner was totally protective of both her and her image, so protective that he had decided the best way to protect her image on national television was to make sure she never actually spoke on it. That same protectiveness extended to everything. He would not allow her to work with other producers. He would not allow her to appear on other people's shows. He would not allow her name on magazine covers that ran advertisements for venues that served alcohol. In an interview she gave years later, Dolly described it plainly. He would not allow me to have other producers or go on other people's shows. Everything was kind of a threat. By the early 1970s, her solo records were hitting #1. Jolene was released in 1973 and reached the top of the country charts while also crossing into the Hot 100. She was, objectively, outgrowing the show. Porter Wagoner responded to that by tightening his grip. She had promised to stay 5 years. She stayed 7, and by the end of it, the fights between them were so loud and so frequent that the Wagon Masters could hear them through the walls of their tour bus and through the walls of the motels they shared on the road. In February 1974, Dolly Parton and Porter Wagoner played a show in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That night, in the motel where the band was staying, they had the fight that ended everything in argument so loud, so sustained, and so far past the point of return that the entire Wagon Masters band heard every word through the walls. Dolly told him what she had been telling him for 2 years. She wanted her own band, her own show, her own career, her own future. She was not asking anymore. Porter Wagoner had built his career on the certainty that he knew what was best for the people around him. He had been wrong about that for years by the time they stood in that motel hallway. And somewhere in the noise of that fight, he finally heard it. The next morning, Dolly Parton went home to Nashville, sat by the fireplace at her house in Antioch, and wrote a song. She wrote it in one sitting, which is the only way she has ever written the songs that matter most. She wrote it as an explanation and an apology and a goodbye, and then she walked into Porter Wagoner's office, sat him down, took out her guitar, and sang it to him. He listened. He didn't say anything until she finished, and when she finished, he was crying. He told her it was the best song she'd ever written, and then he told her she could go providing he got to produce the record. That song was I Will Always Love You. It went to #1. In 1978, Dolly Parton appeared on the cover of Playboy magazine, a choice that reflected exactly the kind of creative freedom she had spent years fighting for. And the moment that issue hit newsstands, Porter Wagoner gave an interview to the Tennessean newspaper. The headline the paper ran was, "Porter's bitter remarks turned Dolly's happiest hour sour." He told the reporter that Dolly lived in a fairyland and then asked, "Do you think Kitty Wells would do that?" Then on March 21, 1979, 5 years after she left, 3 years after they had last spoken, Wagoner filed a $3 million lawsuit against Dolly Parton for breach of contract. He claimed that her leaving the show had forced him to cancel tours that he was entitled to 15% of her net income for the 5 years following her departure, and that having made her a star, he deserved a percentage of what that star had earned. Dolly settled for $1 million paid in installments. Her public response, delivered without a single word wasted, was this: "I made up my mind that if he could live with it, I could live without it. I suppose Porter has done all right with it. I am neither his conscience nor his accountant." Years passed. Neither of them mentioned the other in any interview that required elaboration, and then slowly they found their way back. On May 19, 2007, Porter Wagoner celebrated 50 years as a member of the Grand Ole Opry. He was 80 years old, hunched and gaunt from lung cancer, seated for most of the night on a stage where he had stood for half a century. Dolly walked out. She took the microphone, and she sang I Will Always Love You directly to the man who had sued her, controlled her, undercut her in the press, and made her the star she became. She looked at him while she sang it. He sat there with his hands in his lap. 5 months later, on October 28, 2007, Porter Wagoner died. Dolly was with him. In 2025, in a book she wrote at 78 years old, Dolly Parton finally said the quiet part out loud. Porter Wagoner was giving her gifts instead of a salary and calling it even. She never said it was unforgivable. She said it was why they started having problems. That distinction matters, because for 50 years, the public version of this story has been, Porter gave Dolly her start, they fought, she left, they made up. What the book adds is the part that explains all the fighting that one of them was being paid in jewelry while the other kept the books. Dolly Parton called Porter Wagoner a male chauvinist pig in a 2008 interview, and in the same breath she said she would always love him. Both things were true at the same time, which is the most honest possible accounting of what they were to each other. He launched her. He tried to keep her. She left anyway, with a song that became one of the best-selling singles in American music history. And the man who made her write it in the first place was sitting in the front row the night she sang it back to him for the last time. Subscribe if you want more of the stories behind the stories, the ones that take 50 years and a memoir to finally come out.